Welcome to this brand new podcast, The Money Simulation. A quick summary of what you can expect in this first episode of the podcast. First off, I want to talk a little bit about what is the money simulation, who caused it, what does it entail, how it might be affecting you. Secondly, I want to do a little bit of a discussion on this podcast since it is the first episode, what you can expect, what it's going to be like, what my aims for it are, what I hope the audience will glean from it. And then I want to talk a little bit about my story, what inspired me to start this podcast, and how I kind of came to realize and maybe acknowledge the money simulation. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So what is the money simulation? What do I mean by that? Why is that so significant to me? I'm going to start with a little bit of a comparison to probably a pretty common show that many of you have probably seen. A show from the 1990s, I guess a movie from the 1990s called The Truman Show. It's a really good comedy. And it follows a man named Truman who his whole life has grown up living what was to him pretty average, simple, normal, kind of suburban life. And eventually he realizes that all of his life is an illusion. All of it is a simulation. And he's really been living on a television show that's been broadcasted to the whole world his entire life. But he doesn't figure that out all at once. Throughout, the movie, you see Truman and you follow him through many strange events that happen to him that start to wake him up to the idea that he is in this simulation. The first notable one is, there's a studio light that just falls from the sky. Man, that's kind of weird. People in public, strangers that he shouldn't know his name and address him by his name. Just strange things that start happening to Truman. Glitches, if you will, in this simulation. And that analogy to me is so powerful. I feel like over the past 6 months or so in my life, I've started to see a few glitches in the simulation that I have been living. And it's with respect to money and with respect to finance and with respect to the potential for a career and with respect to what investing means. Really just the monetary way that we live our lives together, as a whole, I feel like has been kind of a simulation for me. And I feel like for much of the middle class, at least I can speak for, has been under this same illusion and has been raised under this same illusion. What is that simulation? What does that entail? That is probably more appropriately left to be the topic of an entire episode on its own and a more dedicated discussion. But in brief, I feel like the simulation is the fact that, many of us are led to believe that you need to, get a degree and work for a company or get a skill and work for work for a company to use this skill and get paid and put money away into a retirement account and save up so that you can have a down payment on a vehicle loan or a mortgage or whatever. Now, I don't think any of those things in and of themselves are a bad way to go. Going back to the movie The Truman Show, I don't think Truman's life was a poor lifestyle. I don't think his life was a sad one at all. I don't think it was bad for him. He had a home. He had a wife. He obviously, enjoyed his day-to-day. You can tell that Truman is happy. But at the moment he started to realize that there is an entire world of possibilities awaiting him, that's when he started to become extremely disillusioned with what's going on around him. And that to me is so telling of what the financial landscape of our culture is like. There is so much more out there, and so many more possibilities than we are conventionally led to believe. So many more ways of living life. There's not just one path, and there's not just 100 paths. There are millions of ways to live your life, and not just in a different career, but financially, and how you manage your money, and how you invest it, and how it grows, and how it provides for you and your family, and how you like to manage debt. And again, not that any particular way of living is a bad way of living financially, but I think I owe it to the viewers of this podcast to discuss the things that I have seen in my simulation, just in case, and I'm willing to bet I'm right about this, but just in case, there are many other people out there that are under this spell, under this simulation, that just don't realize it yet, as I haven't realized it for most of my life. So, that's kind of what I think the money simulation is. That begs the question, who has created the money simulation? What is the origin of the money simulation? Everybody loves an enemy, right? So let's talk about who's the enemy. Is the enemy the government? Is the enemy, big pharma? Is the enemy politics? Is the enemy the media? Everyone loves to have their enemies, and everyone has their enemies that they like to target for things, and that is, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about the tendency for everyone to sit and target an enemy all the time. But I do want to discuss what is the enemy, who's creating this simulation for us. Really, I think it's ourselves. I think it's the fear that we have keeping us from exploring and experimenting with things that would give us more freedom. I think it's fear, and I think it's not, I think it would be silly for someone like myself or someone like you to blame it on, oh, my parents, blah, 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 or my school teachers, the school system should have done this and that, and, great. Those factors may play in. I don't know what your growing up is like. I don't know what your parents were like. I don't know what your school system was like. But I think we need to get to the nitty-gritty and the bottom line of the fear of going against what we are conventionally used to has kept us in this island, so to speak, this simulation where we don't understand what is out there. And that makes it really hard to see the glitches. We've almost glitch-proofed ourselves using that fear. We've made excuses when glitches do come up that why really the simulation is safe. It's funny, in the Truman Show, Truman starts to say things like, I want to go travel the world, let's just save up a few $1,000s, and his wife's like, oh, everything we need here is safe. You're safe here in this simulation. And I think we do that to ourselves. I think we make up excuses why we can't break free. Again, all of these individual points I'm bringing up are probably waiting to be, complete episodes in and of themselves. But, it's this is something that's significant to me. And so that's the reason I'm making this podcast. I also want to acknowledge, I don't think everyone is under this simulation. I don't think that everyone's social circles have implanted this simulation into them. I certainly feel like my social circles and my way of seeing the world, my personality, have induced me into this simulation. I definitely think that there are other social circles where that's not the case. I've had friends where I've been like, holy cow, I've been learning about business and finance, and there's a whole nother world out there. And they're like, you didn't know that? Isn't that obvious to you? And I think it just has to do with the culture, the social circles, the way that, I was brought up, and that's okay. So anyway, it's not, but the simulation isn't something I think that everyone falls under. I definitely did. I definitely think that the large majority of people do, but certainly not everyone. I think there are many people that are brought up in a way where they understand things differently than I did, and have a little bit of a better grip on it. So that kind of segues into my next point. How did I figure out, so to speak, how did I see the glitches? How have I started to realize the simulation that I am under? I'm not going to pretend that I'm completely out of it. I think there are many mindset things where I still experience the simulation in a lot of ways. But what were those glitches that got me thinking for myself? That is probably also a whole nother episode of this podcast waiting to happen. With that being said, I'll kind of give a brief summary of what I think it was, and I don't know that I can put my finger on it exactly at this point, but I think the main thing was I started to see people who broke the laws of what I thought were possible. I'll give you an example. I had a friend growing up, more of a mentor, I suppose, much older than me. And you ask him what he did, and he was like, well, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And he just had a lot of resources and a lot of time and a lot of freedom and a lot of sense to him. Yet he was very stable as a person. He was very level-headed. He was very he was someone who was a religious person. He was someone who had a family, and these were just things that kind of conflicted with my ideas about how you could live your life. I thought, oh, well, you've got to work hard, your whole life at a 9-to-5 so that you can, squeak by and provide for your family. And hopefully you can afford some luxuries at the end of the day. And he didn't live by those same rules. He had lots of time on his plate and lots of resources to do what he would with that time. And there were other examples, family members, friends, acquaintances that I saw that, again, kind of broke the mold of what I saw in 99.999% of people that got me thinking. And they were kind of glitches for me. They really were. They were glitches in the simulation. And as I started exploring that world of business, finance, investing, as I started exploring that more and more and more, I started to understand that the way that I was, kind of conditioned to think about money, again, not necessarily a bad way to think about money, but a very close-minded way to think about money, and a way to think about money that did not open my mind to the possibilities of what I could do. So, that's kind of my goal for this podcast. I hope that it can be a glitch in the simulation for someone else. I hope that the audience will at least be entertained by what I have to say about my thoughts on, the simulation, so to speak. I hope that the audience will be inspired to explore the world outside of the simulation as well. I'm not going to pretend that I have any special monopoly on these principles. I'm not going to pretend that I have any special skill set. I'm a young guy who's just trying to learn and trying to learn and experience these things for myself and break free myself. And I hope that is an entertaining perspective. It's something that I haven't seen a lot of out there. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and I hope you guys are inspired to think and to open your mind to different possibilities. I think I kind of want to incorporate into every episode of this podcast in some way an action item, and something that you can do to maybe educate yourself a little bit better, get yourself into better mental or physical state, to do something to benefit you, to benefit the audience. And so the action item that I would like to share with you today is actually one of the glitches that I found in the simulation, and it's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. It was recommended to me by a financial advisor, and it's very short. To be quite honest with you, I haven't even finished the whole book. I think the first half, got me so excited that I haven't gotten around to going back to the last half of it. So at least read the first half of it anyway. The Richest Man in Babylon. That's the action item I will share for today. And I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I said, pretty candid, pretty informal setting here, and I hope that that's been something that has benefited you. So thank you for listening, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.